Climate is changing all around us. The way it's going to affect the lives of people is going to be in very unequal ways. The way it's going to make communities react to environment is also going to be transformative. I think the way climate is going to affect communities in mountain regions is very different from the way it's going to affect communities who live in the plains or who live along the coastal lines. I was a product of urban environment, and things changed for me when I interfaced with nature in its elemental form. I decided to trek to the northern areas of Pakistan to see the high mountains. My entry was there as a trekker. I'd heard so much about this magnificent landscape, about this wonderful land, and I wanted to experience nature. This region has the largest glaciers outside the subpolar regions. It is also home to K2, the second highest mountain in the world. And from Concordia, which is also known as the throne room of the mountain gods, you have 3 mountain peaks above 8,000 meters within a radius of 20 kilometers. Along with hundreds of other smaller mountains, towers, and spires, this region attracts a lot of adventure tourism. I'd heard about the magnetic powers of K2, but to be honest with you, when I saw this mountain, I could actually feel its pulsating energy. And had it not been for the waste and degradation that I saw in that landscape all around me, I would have probably come back and never gone back. But that waste, that pollution, jarred me. It disturbed me at a deeper level. And I felt that there was something that I need to do to preserve and protect this environment. So I returned the next year, but not as a trekker. I was leading a cleanup expedition. I had 100 porters with me, and I spent 6 weeks in the mountains. I trekked to all the base camps, and I collected all the waste. And I brought large quantities of waste that had been left behind by visitors into that region. I did that again the next year, but I realized that this activity was not sustainable. I couldn't keep going back every year and bringing back waste that others were leaving behind. There was something that I needed to do that was sustainable and that could create local ownership. And that is when the idea of linking ecology with economy occurred to me. I thought, why not build campsites here? Build campsites and provide facilities that would provide permanent waste management systems and give community revenue. They could charge camping fee, the tourist would also have a more enjoyable stay, and it would be something that would work for the benefit of the environment as well as for the well-being of the local communities. So I discussed these plans with the local communities, and of course, initially, there was a lot of hesitation. There was also a lot of suspicion because they wondered why I wanted to do something like this. Did I want to take over their lands? Did I want to take over their assets? What was my reason behind this initiative? But eventually, after spending 1 month with them, I was able to convince them that it would be something that would be beneficial both for the environment and for them. I took 1 year to plan this whole activity, and I took 3 months to implement the projects. The first campsite that we implemented or built was at 10,000 feet. The second campsite was at 11,000 feet, and the third campsite was at 13,000 feet. Each campsite took us approximately 1 month to build. The third one was the most difficult since it was sitting along the Baltoro Glacier on a ridge. The timing for this activity, coincidentally, was also perfect. The following year, which is 2004, was the 50th anniversary of K2. And a lot of mountaineers and trekkers were going to come into this area, generating a lot of waste. So because of the campsites, there was very effective waste management, and the communities were able to make a lot of money from the camping fee. So I felt very happy that the initiative was very successful and we were able to do something that was good for the environment, good for the people. So I started my journey back home, and I thought after spending a day in the village, I would return to Skardu and then fly back to Islamabad, but that's not what happened. I think fate had other things in store for me. When I reached the village Ascole, the community asked me to spend a few days with them. And I thought, why not? I'm never going to come back to this region again. I'm not going to travel on these treacherous roads. I'm not going to endure this kind of hardship, living without water, living without electricity, living without proper food. So now that I'm here, let me talk to the communities and tell them a little bit about environmental protection, about conservation, about hygiene, about sanitation. But those 2-3 days extended to 2-3 weeks. And it was then that I realized what it actually means to live in that area. That area is remote, the communities are marginalized. Infrastructure is poor, and education and health indicators are very low. The communities essentially survive on the ecosystem goods and services. Therefore, any change in climate, any change in snowfall patterns, any shift in the amplitude and timing of water has a direct effect on their livelihoods. This region is covered by mountains. 94% of the land is covered by mountains. 2% is rivers and other water bodies. That leaves only 4% for cultivation. Therefore, agriculture becomes the main source of sustenance for these people. So I sat down with the communities and I said, okay, now that we've done environmental protection of the Central Karakoram National Park, let's talk about building your resilience and helping you adapt to climate change. So we decided that the first need was food security. The second, identified by the communities, was disaster risk management. And the third one, which I saw for myself, was the absence of the role of women in decision making. So we said, how can we put all these three together to build your resilience? So the first thing we did was to tap perennial sources of fresh water. We brought water down so that communities would have a reliable source of water, so they could have water when they needed it and use it as they needed it. This area is high altitude and therefore it's a single cropping zone. And agriculture, fodder, livestock, these things become very important for the community. So with access to water, both for domestic use and for irrigation purposes, we could provide social and economic safety nets for these communities. The irrigation water supply brought barren land under cultivation, and it also produced surplus crops for them, which they could sell in the market. The drinking water supplies provided them with safe drinking water, which reduced incidence of waterborne diseases, and it also saved women a lot of time and energy that they earlier spent on fetching water from long distances. This, by the way, contributed directly to their physical and emotional well-being as well. The third thing was disaster risk reduction, and for that I helped the local communities build flood protective works. This protected further degradation of the land, and this also protected their lives and their assets. So after all this work was done, I thought, okay, now I've done consolidated work that needed to be done in this area, and I could move out. But adjoining communities saw the results of these interventions, and they wanted me to come and work with them. So I moved from village to village to village, and before I knew, I was in that area for almost 18 years doing the same kind of work, empowering communities, helping to build their capacities, helping them to adopt measures that would safeguard their social and economic well-being. And today I'm still involved with those communities, and we're continuing to work together to find local solutions to local problems. Climate change, I think now scientifically it has been proven that it's induced by human activity. And if that is the case, then I think it's only human actions that can arrest this phenomena. And it's not something that can be done by one individual or one organization or one country. It's a global phenomena. So we all need to act together. We all need to do what we can and play a role. I feel after my experience that if I, as one individual, could go into this area, and by the way, when I went into this area, everybody thought I'm crazy. I'm crazy as a woman to go into this area, and I will not be able to endure the hardship. I'll not be able to cope with the challenges faced by rural communities who are conservative and male-dominated environment. But in the end, I think it was patience and perseverance and probably a part of the passion that I felt for this land that prevailed. And I was able to achieve much, much more than what I had actually anticipated. So if I can do it, I think you can do it. And it's a global problem, and it has to find global solutions. And all of us who are citizens of this planet, who inhabit this planet, need to do something to save this planet, work at our own level, and do something that makes a difference to help others who can benefit from our experience, perhaps, or from our knowledge. So the time to work and act is now. I urge everyone, just do it. Search your heart, find your niche, and just do it. Thank you.